Jumping joyfully toward your destiny is what life is all about. Welcome to the Destiny Culture Podcast, where you'll create a destiny culture in a simple ABCD format so that confusion, exhaustion, and paralyzation don't win. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am Tracy Warren, your host, and we have a wonderful guest on with us today, Mary Beth Burgess, and she has been a client of Uncoached this past year and for sure experienced a Captivate season, which has been what we talked about in last week's podcast, is the entire Captivate season. And now today we wanted to give an opportunity to chat with somebody who has really experienced both a challenging as well as beautiful Captivate season. And Mary Beth for sure has moved through that with grace. I don't know if you would agree totally, but I think you moved through it with a lot of grace and certainly leaned on a community of support going through that dry, hot, even lonely place, and come out of it to be able to dance, which is always our end result when we move through that ABCD expansion process. So Mary Beth has a couple of businesses, actually. She is located in Clarksville, Virginia, and she came to Uncoached ready to build after the COVID lockdown, her boutique business, which is called Across the Nations. And so she has a brick and mortar type business there. And then also, products can be purchased on her Facebook page. But then she was also at the time super busy driving. I think it was a couple times a week. Weren't you driving to massage therapy school? Yeah. And so she was a really busy season that she decided to embark also upon moving into what we call CEO flow. And of course, that need for her to be in a space of flow was obviously very great. But at the same time, I'm sure it was really scary to make a further commitment to adding anything to her plate in that moment. So she also did graduate from massage therapy school and now has her massage therapy business going, which is called Ancient Wisdom Massage and Bodywork. So Mary Beth, welcome. We're so grateful to have you in our conversation today. And why don't you add for our listeners anything that you would say you would want them to know about you, but maybe I didn't say, or tell them a little bit more about why and how these businesses came to be so we can get a good picture of who is Mary Beth.
Who is Mary Beth? Well, thank you, Tracy, for having me on today. There's just so much to the story. And I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to give people a little bit of a glimpse into the story. So I was a social worker really for 35 years. And God was really moving my husband and I. So we moved into this little lake community called Clarksville, Virginia. And he called us to open a store called he gave us the name Across the Nations. And then he also gave us the tagline, which is connecting people and sharing Christ. So that doesn't necessarily seem like, oh, that's the perfect name for a boutique, but that's what he gave me. So we started the business and then COVID hit. So the store really has evolved over time from a place where we provide Christian books and gifts, along with my husband does carving. He carves crosses. So we had those. And then we just started adding things that would help support and connect people around the world. So we have things like jewelry that helps support people from Ecuador that's made out of an organic tagua. It's tagua jewelry. So we have that jewelry. We had some coffee that is roasted here, but the process helps to support women and children in 2 different locations around the world in orphanages. So that's cool. We have hand-woven baskets from Ghana. So our goal was to really create an environment and a space where we could connect locally with the local people, but also help connect them with different people and things around the world. So we now have things in our store from, Europe, Scotland, Ireland, fragrances, things that support other countries, and then things that just support women's habits of shopping. And then as with the massage, I really felt called to provide a service that's not provided in this community. And I was really seeing a need, particularly with COVID and the way people have been isolated, to bring massage back into our community. And, the healing touch has always been something that I've been drawn to. So I embarked on school in the midst of all of that. It was actually good timing because there wasn't a lot of foot traffic in the store during those really dry months of the COVID season early on. So it really allowed me some space to go to school and to get that done. But like you said, it was a lot. There was a lot on my plate. But
For sure. And I wanted to, it doesn't show up very well in front of this plate on camera, but this is one of the crosses that Mary Beth sent that her husband carved. Isn't that beautiful? So I keep that up there. It's one of the things that I had heard somebody say to keep something in your background on video that is always there, that you can always focus on. And that little cross has become that thing for me. So you can let him know, regardless of what the conversation is, that I'm, coaching people or podcasting and that kind of thing. The cross is always there. So yeah, thanks for him. So here's something that I want to kind of educate our listeners and bring them up to speed, if you will, and then we'll go back into your story. So today, of course, we are kind of expounding upon the Captivate season and what that is like in real life. We could talk all around it all day long, but then when you're going through it, that is always different than just being educated on something, right? So for you, even as you were sharing your story, I was like, oh, that was your awaken. When you were hearing God say, open a shop, call it this. Here's the tagline. Your community needs massage therapy. You were receiving divine revelation, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I would say that was coming to you because of your dedication to come to him, to rest and to be still in order to be able to hear from him. Mm-hmm. You're shaking your head. Yes. Is that accurate?
I think I was in a space where I wasn't, anytime that God's really moved me in a significant way, there was this unsettling. So I was in a position, in a place where things just started stirring within me. And I knew there was a change coming. Yeah. And so I said, okay, what is it that you want me to do? And in this situation, and it's part of the story too, of how he's really called me to be totally dependent on him for provision. Yeah. So I had to let go of one thing before the other thing really materialized. And that was scary. That was a really scary place to be.
Yeah. And so when our paths collided, you had already embarked and said yes to him to take that action, which introduces those fears, which is part of the believe season where you're like, I heard from him and now I took action. Now, oh my goodness, what is happening? And what am I supposed to do with this now? And now things are starting to grow, but I've got all these buts coming up in the way, and then I actually had posted this morning, I believe it was, about how many trauma triggers come into play when you up level and when you do say yes, and then you're growing and your work is growing. And then it's like, oh, it hits you internally at different places, and so that belief season then, we did a freedom session with you. We had our coaching, we had our group calls with CEO Flow where there's healing taking place. And so that was kind of walking you through a belief season. Then comes Captivate. And that is, that place of feeling like things are falling away and it's incredibly scary. It leaves you feeling like, why have I worked so hard to get to this mountaintop of belief when things start falling off, whether it's relationships, whether it is business slows, whether it is the second guessing, you know what I mean? And so for you, what did that Captivate season look like? I know on our end, there was that place where you were like, I'm just ready to be done with this entire process. I'm ready to be just like done in multiple areas, and sometimes they collide. It's not ideal when that happens, but let's say I'm just making up areas of life, let's say that your physical health is also declining and in a Captivate season as the same time as a marriage, as the same time as business. That's like perfect storm, and so fortunately it doesn't happen that way all the time, but certainly the Captivate season does feel very dry. What was that like for you?
Wow. I think there were definitely some things that came up through the freedom session with regard to relationships and needing to let go of some things that I held, forgiveness, repentance. I mean, I learned so much about how much those things kept me locked. And from growing and moving forward. So there was a lot of personal growth in that time. There was a lot of things that I needed to look at in my own self that needed to change, in my own mindset that needed to change in order to move forward. And that's not easy for me. That's not an easy space for me to be in. I'm kind of a person that likes to make quick decisions, move forward. I've always kind of relied on my own strength, my own knowledge, my own abilities. And this is when God was saying, no, you need to kind of back up and let me, peel the onion, so to speak, so that I can, birth the onion blossom.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was a difficult time because it did show up in relationships. It showed up in some health because I was having so many priorities going at the same time. So I was putting that overwhelm on myself. And I think through a lot of the work that we did in CEO Flow, it helped me to kind of work through that so that I could deal with some of those things in order to get to the other side.
How do you and there's not a right or wrong answer to this question, but I know that there are a lot of people that will understand this, and then there are people that don't understand it. But how for you has your own growth internally impacted the way that you show up in your relationship, in your family, as well as in business? Because I believe that they're all connected. I know even in physical body, like if I don't feel physically well, then I may call in sick to work. If I don't feel mentally and emotionally and spiritually well, I just don't show up to the same way in my marriage or my client work. You know what I mean? So how does that look for you?
I think for me, what it did was it shifted my perspective on things. That instead of looking, outside for the reason why things were happening, I took ownership and accountability for what was happening and made different choices to change the outcomes. So it freed up some of that negativity, I guess, for me, and allowed me to see things just in a different perspective, which, there was a lot of messages from people in my life about doing things a certain way, or, so I was internalizing all of that. And once I kind of freed my mind up from all of that, I started to see changes, the workers that I got, and seeing the need to put people in places in my organization that could do the things that they're better suited for.
Right.
So, the dress your truth. That was
Oh,
a big
yeah.
for me to know, oh, this trait of yours doesn't make you a bad person. It's who you are, and the strengths in it are these, and this is what you need in this space at your job. That's not, it's somebody else's trait, not mine,
Right.
So I learned to kind of take those bits of information and decide, oh, I can see myself in a different light. And now I know this is what I need over here. This is what I need over here. And how can I make that happen?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you touched on, I mean, in a way, that Captivate season was extremely hard because, as you said, for you, there were multiple things you were in Captivate in multiple areas at the same time. So it's kind of double challenging, if you will. However, what came of that was the beauty of not only the ownership, which I was just like, oh my gosh, thank you for saying ownership. It's so huge. Like, if there's only one thing anybody could get out of the ABCD process, the impact of taking ownership is incredible. There's so much power and freedom in taking ownership. If my results are not dependent upon anybody else and I can't blame them anymore for my failures or my successes, guess what? That empowers me. But many people, I think it's because of pride, are not ready to take that ownership. And certainly you did, no doubt. But it is quite empowering to actually get to that place where you're ready to say, all right, this is not anybody else's fault or anybody else's success, and I own it. That's really great. So then as you took ownership and you said, okay, I'm going to love you, Jesus. I'm going to be grateful for this. I'm going to surrender. These hard things that I'm experiencing are not because I'm a bad person. They're not because, you know what I mean? And it wasn't like a pity shaming party. You didn't choose the shame and guilt, on yourself, because that is part of life, right? And you really did allow yourself to go back to that space of thanking him. And it was amazing. Some of those small, from day to day, what I would call miracles, and just those nudges from him that said, I'm here. And I see your heart. I see what you're doing, and it's good. And you had people come into your shop that poured love all over you during those hard days. And then you'd message, and I got chills again, just like how amazing he is to be right there with us in that season of Captivate. And we can't concoct that. If we're not willing to go into that hot, dry season, we're not going to experience those beautiful times and spaces where he is really assuring us that he's the only thing we need. And it's during that we allow ourselves to completely surrender the results, because, you're like, all right, Lord, you're the one that told me to start the business. You're the one that gave me the business, and it's all on you, remember? And we get to hold him to those promises that he made, because we've surrendered it all along the way. And go ahead.
Something, as you were talking about that, I remember times during that season where, there is this dry spell in people coming into the store, like days when nobody came into the store. And I'm like, okay, God, I don't get it. And there was a tendency in me, because it's kind of my nature business wise, to say, okay, I have to, get creative, move the needle. And there was a time when I really thought, I got to do this website thing. Everybody's telling me you're not going to get here until you get here, and blah, blah, blah. And I just felt so much pressure to kind of move things myself. And then I really, thankfully, that you guys were always so focused on, but what does God say? Like, bring it back to a conversation you need to have with the Lord. And he said to me very clearly, that's not what I told you to do.
Nice.
okay, I can let go of this whole website thing right
Right.
now. I mean,
Yeah,
he may at some point tell me to do it, but
sure.
he said, nope, I did not tell you to do that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay.
That has been one of the craziest things for me in business in general for years. For years, I have, in my own strength, moved forward to work on a website and it doesn't pan out. The person like drops off the face of the earth. Again, okay, here's Tracy. Let's move forward in our own strength. Try and get a website. It has not been his instruction for me to have a website. And it has not hindered our effectiveness at all. And so, yeah, going back always to ask him, what is it that you want me to do, Lord, with my time, my talent, and my treasure? Because it's actually yours.
Mm-hmm.
Always going to give us a better answer. Always. So, yeah, we're just so proud of you. So then, as we have shared with you about the Captivate season, of course, what comes next is dance. And certainly Mary Beth has been experiencing many more dancing times since her prominent Captivate season. Of course, we always, it's cyclical. So she'll revisit Captivate, no doubt. And it happens. And that is part of life and growing and expansion. But share with them just in a nutshell how you've seen dance unfold for you so that they can get excited about our next podcast, which is going into dance.
Oh my word. I love to dance. I like there's a reason why I was a teenager during disco time, because I love to love to dance. But from the two workers that I have now working for me, because I couldn't do my massage, which is in the same building, without having people that could see my vision, understand my vision. That whole connecting people and sharing Christ is truly the core of what we are all about. And I needed to have people that understood that and that were able to, bring that to the store as well. So in God's timing, he moved some people out and he moved these two ladies in, and they are amazing. Amazing. So it allowed us to really start to develop, an environment. And once people started really coming back in after COVID and experiencing the environment, we just started to see growth happen. Like, so between September and now, I started my massage business August 26th. So between August and today, we have increased our sales business by 50%. So we've done 50% of what we did all last year.
Wow. That's like a 4-month time span.
Yeah, super amazing. And then just with the massage business of seeing what it's doing for the people in the community to help keep them healthy, keep them active, keep them engaged. It's just really been amazing.
That's awesome. Congratulations. That's amazing. I'm so proud of you. So as we are wrapping up, you guys will get to hear more about the dance season on our next upcoming podcast. And thank you so much, Mary Beth, for your time, your talent, and your treasure today. Why don't you share with people how they can connect with you more if they are in the Clarksville, Virginia area and want to come to you for massage? How can they do that? And then of course, they would be able to visit the boutique at the same time. But if somebody is not in your area, how they can find you and your shop so that they can order online.
Yes, you can find us on Facebook, and it is Across the Nations 1 on our Facebook page. And you can, all of our information is on there, the address of the shop, the phone number. The phone number there is my cell phone number, which is also 434-454-8106. And they can reach out to me individually. And the same thing with Ancient Wisdom. You can find me on the Across the Nations page, and it will help link you to my Ancient Wisdom massage page.
Beautiful. And just so you guys know, if you are somebody that is unsure of yourself in terms of what to wear and how to wear something confidently, Mary Beth would be a great go-to, and she would certainly be able to guide you, even if you're not physically there. I know that she would have amazing input to help you truly dress and carry yourself in a way that is aligned with just who you are at your core. So thank you again, Mary Beth. This has been so much fun, and I'm super excited for people to come back and share with both of us how your story has impacted them. It's a beautiful story indeed. So
Thanks, Tracy. I appreciate it.
my pleasure. Talk soon.
Bye-bye.